Good afternoon. My name is Joffrey Miller. I am the instructor for Management 4335, Human Resource Management, and the purpose of this video is to kind of go over Blackboard and show some of the items that I have loaded, how to navigate around, and see some of the extra materials that I've provided. Okay. First of all, I wanted to just kind of go over from top to bottom, starting out with the home page. It takes you, of course, it takes you to, the main part of Blackboard. But going into the next tab, it gives you a course overview. There's a video you should watch. You should probably go through some of these the objectives of the course so you kind of understand what the course is all about. The next thing is where the syllabus is kept, and when you open that up, I really suggest that you take a close look at this syllabus. A lot of this stuff is standard on every one, but there's a couple of sections in particular you want to take a look at. My information is right here. My office hours, my virtual office hours are there. The name and the number of the Dean of Business is also on there. It gives you a course overview. Of course, the textbook. Just incidentally, the way I have the textbook listed here, if you were to highlight this portion right here and you were, say you were quoting out of the textbook, you could just cut and paste that because that is an APA format. Looking on down, we talk about Grammarly. By now, I know I've sent out a link to everyone. If you did not receive that, please either give me a call, text me, or send me an email, and I'll send that link out to you. I cannot overemphasize how highly encouraged using this is. It is the premier edition, and it is free through the school. The only caveat is that you have to use your student email in order to get it. But when I look at grammar, I'm not looking for the whole. I'm not looking for everything in grammar, but I am looking for use of words in the right context, spelling, of course. Common grammar mistakes. I won't take off for a lot of passive voice, even though we should be attempting to write an active voice. Grammarly can certainly help you in that area, especially when you're writing an APA paper that you should have no passive voice. So I highly encourage you. And there's one part of this right here is that it's a good check for unintentional plagiarism. And if you, as you've read through the plagiarism policy by now, or should have, it definitely talks about intentional and non-intentional plagiarism. Last semester, I had 3 incidents of plagiarism. I do find plagiarism. I scan every single written word that you submit to me. And it's inevitable. Last semester, 3 students, and I had to take off considerably for that mistake that they made. Both of those were intentional. Prior to that semester, I had another student that attempted to copy an entire Wikipedia subject that was written in Wikipedia and copy down the sources and put it in an APA format, and it just came up 100% hot for Wikipedia when I scanned it. So, it's very discouraging to come across this. It's been very discouraging the last 2 semesters, and I hope that going into this next semester that we reflect on Hallmark's values, and that, that you only submit your own work. On anything, including discussion questions. This is a senior level class. And if any of you don't think that you are ready for it, come to me and talk to me, and we will discuss it. But you're expected to provide senior level writing. And when it says provide evidence, when when the discussion question asks for evidence-based research, I'm expecting you to provide some kind of source. It does not have to be an academic journal, but it has to be from a reputable source. And if any of you want to know what reputable sources are for the subject of human resource management, we will go over that separately. You can give me a call. Certainly HR Magazine being the number one. I've also, on the page, I'm going to show you where you can get good articles for at least the discussions, and then that'll give you an idea of what I'm looking for as far as articles to be used in your paper. Going on down, there's links to all of the policies on here, including the attendance. And I am teaching this class on the ground and online, so it explains the difference between the two as far as student engagement and activity-based attendance policy. And it talks about those that are online and those that are on the ground. If you are in my class, there's only a few of you that are. You're expected to show up for class. And on this class in particular, you are expected to turn in your work. And I can tell you right now, there's a lot of it. If any of you expected this to be a filler course, or an easy course to take with something much more difficult, this is not a difficult course to pass. But if you do not do the work, you will not get the credit. And if you do not get the credit, you will not pass. So if there's any question on that whatsoever, please get with me. Not turning in discussion questions on a regular basis. You miss a couple of article reviews or case studies, or don't turn in a paper, your overall score is going to go down very quickly. And it is it's my desire that all of you first of all receive a grade that you deserve, but I certainly would like to see you score high, and not just for the sake of scoring, but for that you have earned it and that you've learned something. And that is my learning philosophy. I'm most concerned about you walking out of this class knowing a little bit more than you did before you came in. Something that you can apply. Not, if it's we are going to be discussing a lot of theory-based stuff, but most of everything that we teach in this class, you can apply directly to the workplace. And whether you are going into business as a first-time supervisor, or you're transitioning from one sector to another, such as the military to corporate or small business or whatever, there's some things that you definitely can learn from this class that will take you out there and let you be successful, and that you'll be able to make confident decisions with the employees that you have. So, in this section, additional core requirements, it talks about, what is expected on online discussions, about how they should be substantial, on reply posts, that you don't just say, and that's covered also in the instructions on Blackboard, that you don't just say, oh, I agree. No, we need something a little bit more substantial to that, something that adds to the discussion. And if you got something that if you are quoting somebody's work, I expect you to have it in quotations. I expect you to provide an internal citation. I expect you to put a reference at the bottom of your work. Now, discussion questions are not like a research project. Certainly, you bring a wealth of knowledge through personal experience, work experience, and what you have read. Don't rely on any of those three just for a discussion question. If you are going to talk about your experience, back it up with something besides just your experience. If you're going to talk about something you read, back it up with something you've seen in the workplace or observed yourself. It goes both ways. And what we're looking for is a substantive response, something that adds to the discussion, and something that all of us can learn by. Now, I will ask questions, and answering my question does not count as a response. If I'm asking you a question, I'm giving you the opportunity to clarify your initial post. What that means is that there's not necessarily something wrong, but there's something that I don't understand. And if I don't understand it, it may be because I haven't. There's something new that's come out that I haven't seen before. I haven't seen it all. I do a lot of HR reading as far as trying to keep up with the field, going to conferences, that sort of thing. But I certainly don't know everything. And every single day, there's something new in HR. So if I ask you a question on clarification, or if I don't understand your point of view, I'm going to ask you. And it's not just for the benefit of you, but it's also for the benefit of the entire class. Going on down the line, I've got the basic calendar here, when your information is due, etc. So let's get out of that and go back to. Okay, so we've taken a look at the syllabus, and there's a brief overview of my experience. I've just to kind of briefly go through my biography. I've been fortunate to have spent 25 wonderful years in the Air Force, and I knew early on that what I wanted to do was to stay in what was called personnel administration, which later, even in the military now, is called HR. I was in that for 25 years. I knew I wanted to stay in that field, but I knew that I had to get certain credentials to work in the outside the military. And I've been fortunate to have worked for the city of San Antonio as a senior HR analyst. I did that for a good period of time. My business lines were what San Antonio Convention and Visitors Bureau when it fell under the city. Number two, the Alamo Dome and the mostly blue collar workers that work there, and the executive staff as well. And in the Alamo Dome, all of the folks that keep that running, that was also within my area of responsibility. From there, I went on and I took a brief break to finish up my master's degree. I was really concentrating hard on a few subjects, and I really wanted to put some extra time into that, and not just fill a square or whatever. I really wanted to learn, and that coincided with my also testing for the senior PHR, Senior Professional Human Resource Management, which we're going to discuss those certification. I'm also SHRM certified, which is a different professional certification. We're also going to talk about that. But from the city of San Antonio, it came out in 2007. So 2007, 2008 is kind of rough as far as jobs. I took a brief stint with the federal government. They had a program that dried up and wasn't going to progress quite the way I wanted it to. But it was with the federal government, with the United States Army, that I learned medical staffing. And it's a job that I didn't enjoy a whole lot, but I learned a lot, which allowed me to move into the Methodist healthcare system, where I was an HR business partner. And within Methodist healthcare system, I had South Texas Radiology Imaging Centers, which is a separate company, but is owned partly by Methodist. I was employed by Hospital Corporation of America, HCA, which owns Methodist. So my business lines, I had two business lines. I had the one that I had was strictly South Texas Radiology Imaging Centers, and then I went on to have some other business lines, such as the entire corporate staff at Methodist Healthcare System for all 6 hospitals. And also, I also had the information technology department, And so anyway, I had a really, really enjoyable time with Methodist Healthcare System. I was looking for, I got to the point where I was looking for something a little more fulfilling, I guess. And my ultimate goal was to teach. And I started getting involved with Hallmark University on their academic advisory board and that sort of thing before I finally came over and became a teacher. I still do HR consulting. I have a nonprofit that I do consulting for, the Magic Theater. No theater background whatsoever, but we find that organizations are organizations, and they have a lot of the same challenges, and that's basically what I'm doing now is doing consulting. My business experience, I have owned two businesses. One was a lawn care and landscaping business a long time ago. I also right now am involved in real estate. I currently am renovating and renting an 11-plex, and that keeps me very busy. But it's a side interest of mine as well. So if anybody is looking to move on to the medical field as far as business side, please come talk to me, because I think that I can offer some suggestions that might help as far as getting into that field and what's expected. Going on down the line, of course, you've probably already completed the week 0 requirements. There is a discussion. Basically, it's gives you a quiz on what's in the syllabus as far as attendance and plagiarism, and how to get in touch with me, et cetera, et cetera. So let's look into week 1. Every page, and this is I'm sure that all of you have taken courses at Hallmark before, but the agenda is set up. The discussion question are all due on Wednesdays. They're due at 11:59. Now, on the response to discussion questions, it is expected to be there by Friday morning. You say, oh my gosh, why aren't you giving me the entire weekend? No, I'm giving you 2 extra days from when it was due. So I have that requirement for a very specific reason. I follow a grading. I have kind of a grading process that I use, and I try to get a majority of the discussion questions graded within a given amount of time. But going into the weekends, you will have a quiz and some type of summary to turn in. And this can be an article summary, or it can be a case study, depending on what week. Like in week 1, going into week 1, it looks like we have an article summary. Yes. So it's due by Sunday, and I'm going to show you a little bit about, and then a lot of you have already turned in this competency sheet that you have to sign. There's no credit for that. So basically, that's the agenda for week 1, and then going in, you want to take a look at the lecture notes. It gives you the objectives, etc. I give a little bit more than some. Some give the lecture notes, some do not. You will find a copy of the slides here. You will find a copy of also I provide the lecture notes. If you're online, you're not getting the benefit of a lecture, which brings me to my next point. Okay, let's continue on down the list. We just got through looking at the lecture notes. Let's take a look at the assignments for a second here. And this is the assignment screen. It shows everything is pretty much the same order. It'll have the DQs will always be listed. The discussion question will always be listed first, followed by the quizzes or midterm or final, followed by the assignment, which in this case an HRA. And as you look down here, it gives the instructions. Search for an article regarding a current human resources issue. The article must pertain to one of the HR topics covered in this week and can be about any organization, company, school, etc. Furthermore, the article must be not more than 6 months old. If you want to do something that's more than 6 months old and we find it compelling and interesting, then yes, I would say let's go ahead and do it. But run that by me before you do. But basically, your summary must contain at least 150 to 200 words. Has to be double-spaced in APA format. What I mean by APA format, it doesn't have to have a cover page. It doesn't have to have an abstract. I just want to see, your articles double-spaced. The opening article, I want to know who the author is. If you're going to cite anything else from other sources, such as your textbook, you need to have internal citations, and then your references at the bottom, or even preferably on a second sheet that shows the initial article that you're reviewing, followed by any additional articles or any other additional sources you've used to summarize what you're reading. And I don't expect anything other than the article itself, with a few exceptions, which I'm going to go through. One of the options that I'm giving you is that you may use any of the articles listed in the Blackboard Resources tab, regardless of the date published, with the stipulation that you cite an additional source. What I'm doing is I'm giving you an opportunity to pick an article from a select list that I have compiled. Now, the reason I put these articles out there is because they are current, they are relevant, and they are very important. And they are important enough for me to direct you to those articles, excuse me, so that you can get the benefit of those, the same benefit that I got out of reading them. And those are listed under resources. But the stipulation is that regardless of the date, with the stipulation that you cite one additional source. So in other words, if I have given you an article to review, it's already got the APA citation. And it's got the link to the article where you can read it and draw up your summary. Now, there are usually another article out there that will cover the same thing. So you could show, additional support, some other article that might contradict the one that we're reviewing. Comparison and contrast could add to it, but we want to see something. But in all article reviews, the first paragraph you need to tell me, what article the article that you're summarizing, and how it is relevant to one of the areas that we are studying during that particular week, which is usually 2 chapters per week. So I'm going to take you to this resources tab. Under the resources tab, you will see a whole list of articles. And while we are here, I'm going to show you that there's, first of all, a list of references. You can use any of these. If you click on them, it's got the URL. It's not indented according to APA because it's just cut and pasted into one of the Blackboard pages, but otherwise it's in APA format. And I usually put the last date that I updated this list, and the last article that I put on here will be highlighted in yellow. If you scroll down a little bit more, when we're talking about employment law, I've got basically all of the employment law listed in one list. The ones highlighted in yellow are ones that that fall under the equal opportunity law, what we call equal opportunity laws in our, they have the agency that covers equal opportunities, the Equal Opportunity Commission. Like, for instance, if you were to look at the Age Discrimination Employment Act, each one of these laws has a link. So if you click onto that, it takes you to the U.S. Equal Opportunity Commission, and it will tell you about the age discrimination law. If you look out to the right-hand side, it tells how many employees a company or organization has to have to fall underneath that particular law, how long there is to charge, if you're a federal employee, how many days you have to file, and gives a little bit of some other links pertaining to the subject. So that's pretty much on every one of those that are listed. So all you got, like I say, all you got to do is click on, and you can get more information about it. If you scroll on down, there's going to be some other down here that are Texas specific. Whoops. Let's get back over there. So there'll be Texas specific laws, and I've got one of the most important one is like the Texas payday law. But if you click on any of these areas, it will tell what Texas says about child labor, being able to be let off to attend a court appearance or emergency evacuation, et cetera, et cetera. So all that is out there too. And, I don't expect that when we're talking about an HR law that you go to the actual law itself. I mean, like a legal Lexis site and quote from, a law like you would be referencing a law as an attorney. No, what I want you to do is, if you are looking at a particular law for anything, that you go to the agency that oversees that law, and you get the agency's point of view on that law itself, like the Immigration Nationality Act takes you to the Immigration Service, and it talks about that particular law. So this is taking you to the direct source, as written by the agency that oversees the law, if that makes any sense. But basically, I want you to, if we're talking about a particular law, it's don't just look at your textbook. It's kind of like you need to go out there and read it yourself, so you can get the facts on it. And anytime that you're referencing a particular law, it's best to reference the agency that oversees that law and where you're getting your information, which will be one of those websites. So, going back to where we were. So this is the article review, and of course here's a rubric. And down here, there'll be whatever assignments will go all the way down. Of course, competency, most of you already done already. So that's looking at assignments and some of the supplementary things that I have under resources, which you're going to talk even more about. But under additional resources, you will find, this is where you will find, like, we are looking at week 1, but I've got the information on what's required for the paper that's due in week 3. So you can start looking at that, and you'll, because, it's going to come around pretty quick. So in week 1, we have week 3's assignment under additional resources, so you can start looking at that. And basically what you're going to do on the paper is you'll need to choose only one of any of the learning objectives about any one of 7 weeks of the lectures endnotes. So you'll look at a learning objective, and then from there, you will expand what you want to discuss. After selecting a learning objective that you find interesting, perform additional research basically on the topic. So an example in chapter 1, one of the learning objectives, 1.5, is describe the job of human resource managers from the perspective of professionalism and careers. That would be one. So what you would need to do is you will want to rephrase that objective into an appropriate title. So you're not going to, your title, your paper is not going to be describe whatever. It's going to be, it would be the human resource managers, whatever, and as far as their perspective of professional career, you'll want to rephrase that into an APA title. You'll want to write an APA research paper containing at least three or 4 pages, expanding on the topic beyond what you found in the textbook. Note, your 3 or 4 pages does not include the cover page, does not include the abstract, and does not include the reference. The paper must have at least 4 APA reference citations. Now, this may sound like a lot, but really it's not. One of the 3 references must include a scholarly source from the Hallmark University Online Library. So I am looking for a scholarly journal of at least 1. If you want to do 2, you can. But I would encourage maybe 1 academic journal and maybe 1 article from like HR magazine. I think that would be good. And then, of course, since you're doing an objective from the textbook, you can also, another mandatory reference is your textbook and where about that objective. You can start out writing maybe about what the textbook talks about and then expand from there. But basically what we want to do is learn beyond that objective. So I hope that clarifies that. And in this section too, if you go back under the weekly agenda, it does say read the APA information contained in additional sources, start working on your paper, watch the YouTube video containing additional resources. So if you go there, usually that's listed down at the end. That's under assignments, I'm sorry. Let's back up for a minute. Under additional resources, I'm sorry. So under additional resources, the very first thing, we have the course video. A course video, if it's in bold like that, means that that is the video that the publisher of the text suggests that we watch to supplement the information that we learned from the textbook. Going on down, there is a whole list of, it will take you to resources because there is a tab at the bottom. So it takes you from one place to another. There is a whole list of APA information. If you go to the first one, it takes the American Psychological Association page, and it tells you about the APA reference guide, but it'll give you a lot of different information out there on formatting. You don't even have to have the publication manual to write a paper. You can just follow, that a lot of the information that's here. And then I've honed in on some in particular. Like this is a common question that comes up. Well, I'm sorry, I was looking at something else. The quick answers references about in-text citations, electronic books, interviews, different things that you might have to format and how to format your references. DOI numbers, YouTube videos. If you need any type of information that dealing with APA, by all means, give me a call because I can help you out considerably. If you go to the API style blog, this is another part of the same website, but it's kind of split up. I'm taking you to the very first page. It's got some very important information. You can search out different topics, and it's got questions and sorts. But when I say it's a blog, it's not a blog like anybody blogs on it. It's professionals within the American Psychological Association that are publishing this information. So that's the blog. Got quick answers. This is a question that comes up quite frequently when we talk about APA papers. A lot of people say, do I have to reference everything? Well, pretty much. Pretty much you have to reference almost everything that you write in a paper. You can make a statement and then follow it by a statement that supports. Now, the biggest error I see in APA papers is people only cite direct quotes. Well, direct quotes is one of the things, and if you look in the syllabus, it talks about direct quotes and the amount of percentage of any writing that you submit that must have, the amount of direct quotes that you can use. They should be done sparingly. You should either be rephrasing, you need to paraphrase or summarize what you're reading and put it in your own words. Now, since you summarized or paraphrased, you still have to cite that where you got the information. So that's where you end up with sometimes something that looks like this. If you go through this whole entire thing, the same references, like sentence by sentence by sentence, it's got the same reference. Don't be afraid to over-reference. I would rather you have a reference on every single sentence in that paper than none at all. So, and he talks about here, as the public, somebody asks the question, about, do I cite everything, et cetera, and says, as the publication manual notes, citing your sources is imperative, and it quotes the actual publication's manual. Whether paraphrasing, quoting an author directly, or describing an idea that influenced your work, you must credit the source. And it gets the page number. But we are sometimes asked how a writer can properly and clearly attribute multiple ideas within a paragraph, yet maintain readability and interesting text. And he says this is a challenge. If you include a citation only at the end of the paragraph, the reader won't know how many of the ideas in the previous sentences you are attributing to the cited author. That's another area I see. Somebody going down and putting one citation outside. Parenthetical citations are within the sentence, with the exception of quoting over 40 words, and that's the only exception where you have it blocked off. And then you put that particular citation at the end because you don't use quotes. But he says this is a challenge. You include the citation only at the end of the paragraph. The reader won't know how many of the ideas in the previous sentences you are attributing to the cited author. But including a citation at the end of each sentence, an absolutely clear and correct approach can become redundant. The paragraph above clearly attributes the work of the author, but imagine a 20-page literature review written in this style. Paragraphs 15 through 16 of the publication manual show the example of how to paraphrase multiple ideas without this redundancy. So it kind of goes through and it tells you how to do that. But it may end up like this, where you actually have, if you look at a lot of professional journals, you'll see 4 or 5 references within one sentence, because the author of that journal has, read input from 3 or 4 different sources. So in writing that sentence, they'll have 3 or 4 different sources. So, I mean, it can seem excessive, but you might want to look in here so you can kind of, break down on that redundancy. That information certainly can help you with that. And then, of course, Purdue OWL. That's a very good source. It's kind of been reformatted, but it's out there. But you want to make sure that you're looking at the APA guide because it also gives information on MLA. And the next one right here is how to write a purpose statement or a thesis statement. They're different. But at this level of writing, I'm expecting you to have a minimum of a good written purpose statement. This paper examines blah, 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 and it gives examples of how to write those. There's another reference I'm going to send out that shows a way that there's an automated tool for writing your thesis statement. It asks certain questions, you put it in, and it kind of formats out a thesis statement. Of course, you have to tweak it and work it, but it gives you kind of a way of honing in on what you should have in your thesis statement. But basically, in your paper, I want you to tell me what you're going to tell me, tell it to me, and then tell me what you told me in the summary. If you don't have at least those three things, you're going to get marked down significantly. So when I say tell me what you're going to tell me, then tell me, and then tell me what you told me, that's kind of the format that we follow for speeches as well. But that's pretty simplistic, but it kind of gives you an idea. Excuse me. There's also a link to the Hallmark APA style information. It takes you directly there, so you can look at that also. It gives you sorry about that. It gives you, takes you directly to the Microsoft APA style, where you can pull this down and use this as a template. And as far as your running heads and all of that and how things are set up, you don't want to reinvent the wheel. You want to make it as simple as you can, and by following that template, it can help you out a lot. And these right here, these I got from Dr. Elliott. Those are some of the things he's put out here. I've cut some of the things out that I also had the same thing. I did overlook this right here. APA reference generators. I got BibMe, APA citation machine, EasyBib. Some of these are paid sites, but they'll give you a certain amount to where you can generate. You may not be able to store it, but it'll generate your citation. Of course, you need to look at it. Because, for instance, it'll take a title and it won't put it in sentence format, which is what APA requires. So you'll need to go in and tweak it a little bit. And then following on in, like I said, some information that Dr. Gomez, I added that as well. So that kind of gives you an idea of what's on the resources page, which is linked to the additional chapter resources. Under the APA resources. But if you go into additional chapter resources, you'll find more videos. More videos dealing with the subject. This is not required, but if you want a better understanding of some of the things that we're discussing, it introduces you to a hard book cover called The Naked Employee, which is covering, in two parts of the text, it's covering, employee privacy. It's one of the best books written, but I wanted to point that out because if anybody wants to do some additional reading, this is definitely, and if you're doing a paper on employee privacy, you might want to get a copy of this book. Excuse me. Whether you're getting it from the library, buying it used, or whatever. And in Chapter 1, we talk about SHRM, the Society of Human Resource Management, HRCI, which is another certifying body. We'll talk about that in the chapter, but it gives you the links to that information. Excuse me. There's a website on privacy rights, workplace privacy, and employee monitoring. These folks do some extensive research. This could be another good source for you if you're doing a paper on privacy. Normally, somebody every semester does something on that. And like, for instance, this article right here is very good. I think this one does not have the video, but if you looked up on this Wisconsin company, if you Google it, it'll show you how they put, how this company is starting to use implants under the employee skin, which is kind of creepy, but good additional information. It talked about the future of HR and what a BFOQ, bona fide occupational qualification, is. Going into chapter 2, there's a lot of stuff out here. I don't expect you to look at all of it, but when we start talking about some of these things, hopefully you'll find some of this information, additional information, useful. So that's kind of my overview of week 1 and how things are structured. The other weeks are structured just the same. And that's pretty much it as far as Blackboard is concerned. If anybody has any questions on any of this information that I presented, please, by all means, get in touch with me. You can text me, you can call me, you can email me. I am very accessible, and I will make myself as accessible as needed. But again, I hope that this class and this subject, you will find some of it might. I just hope that you find the value in it, if nothing else. Because there's, as I talk about in class, there's 3 reasons to study human resource management. One is most of us work for somebody and we're an employee. And as an employee, you need to know what your rights are. You need to know how to get promoted. You need to know how to deal with a situation if you're evaluated, if you get an employee evaluation and you don't think it's fair. You need to know what training and development are available. You need to know how to access information on your benefits. And a lot of HR departments are cut to the bone. So, learning a lot of this stuff will help you out as an employee. The next reason to study HR is that you are going to become a supervisor or manager or director or whatever, and most of you business majors are striving to do that. Or even if you're in a small business, you have a certain amount of HR laws that you have to follow. And if you're in small business, you need to know which ones apply and which don't apply based on the number of employee threshold. Like, some laws don't even apply until you have 20 employees. The third reason to study HR is that you're like me. You want to assume some professional role in human resource management as you after you graduate. Currently, there's not an HR specialization at Hallmark, but most of the general management subjects cover some portion of HR. If any of you are interested in HR certifications, you can certainly come to me and we can discuss how you might incorporate that into your work experience and education. So thank you, and have a wonderful day.